This is the Wolf of Wall Street, and I need return on my investment. Welcome back into Off the Wire, the series where I take a team from a startup draft with absolutely nothing and try and turn it into an absolute gem. This is episode 4 and I've been loving all of the feedback so far. Unfortunately, it has been a little bit quieter this week. We have not seen a huge amount of trade activity or waiver activity in the league. And this is my last week before I take 2 weeks off because I'm going to Greece on my honeymoon and I'm not stressing myself out about this team while I'm there. So, in the meantime, I wanted to talk with you guys about value. We have managed to put ourselves in a really fantastic place as a team. Well, fantastic in terms of picks we've managed to accumulate and some of the value we've managed to get for players off the waiver wire. For example, selling AD Mitchell for a second round pick. We've got ourselves an extra second, and we managed to get Roshan Johnson for a third, who I think is going to be a great investment. So in advance of this episode, I went and started to take a look through Keep Trade Cut and through Fancy Pros to try and take a look at their Dynasty rankings to see where I thought there could be some value of players that we could buy. This series is so much about selling players who have accumulated value to try and get a return on the investment.
Make a lot of money. Yeah, I do all right for myself.
But it's also about spotting gaps in the market to see where we can find players that we think are currently undervalued. And I think I found 5 wide receivers who we might have a chance in buying. Now, this is really difficult. We currently have 2 second-round picks in 2026 and 3 third-round picks this year. So it's difficult to know whether we should just hold them all headed towards the rookie draft and just keep absolutely taking shots and seeing who we can get. But I don't hate the idea of taking at least one of those second-round picks and trying to use it to go and get a wide receiver to bulk out our receiving core for the season ahead. Even if it's finding someone that we think is currently undervalued, who we can then sell into the season. The absolute dream is that I can turn this second into a first. And the best way to do that is to invest it in a player who skyrockets in value and we can sell at the peak of where they are. So like I say, I've identified 5 and I want to talk through them with you, and I want you guys to leave a comment and tell me who of these you think I should try and go for. I'm slightly higher on some of these players than others, but I know some of them are absolute Dynasty community darlings right now. So the first player that I want to talk about is Jaylen Waddle. Jaylen Waddle is one of my favourite targets this season. He comes in as my Dynasty wide receiver 19, but in consensus value is all the way down at the back end of the 20s. Jaylen Waddle had a fantastic rookie season and second year in the NFL, but really struggled last season, and to be honest, had a little bit of a down year the year before. The Miami Dolphins offense was genuinely dreadful last season, especially due to Tua's health, although it seems like he's coming into the 2025 season with a clean bill of health, and that offensive line has been improved a little bit. Tyreek Hill is obviously slowly making his way out of the NFL, but it also wouldn't surprise me if he gets moved. If not before the season, it might be by the trade deadline if things aren't working out. That puts Jaylen Waddle as the clear wide receiver 1 at the top of the depth chart. And that makes him very interesting to me. I've had comments before, and I've had conversations with people before that have said to go and try and buy him for a 2026 second round pick. And to me, he's worth way more than that. I would probably pay somewhere towards a mid-first for him going forwards. I value him really highly, and I think if he can see a huge amount of volume, which he's pretty much guaranteed to do if he can stay healthy, he can produce. He was one of my favourite wide receivers in that class coming out of college, and I think we've seen evidence of him being successful in the NFL, even with Tyreek Hill in the same offense. So, do you think I can potentially get him for a second round pick, or do you think I'm kidding myself? Should I offer what is guaranteed to be the 201 next season, or should I potentially try for that later second and see what we can do? I'd love for all of these players to know your thoughts, but I think Jaylen Waddle is someone that I think is going to increase in value. And as well as playing along with me in this series, the wide receivers I'm going to talk about today are all people that I think are going a little under the radar and are available at a lower value now than they will be by the time we are midway through the season. So with that in mind, the next receiver that I had in mind was Chris Olave. Now, Chris Olave is one of my favourite receivers in the league when he's healthy, and we've seen him work both as a dominant deep threat, a touchdown threat, and also working all over the field. If you've watched any of my rookie profiles, you know that I value explosivity, I value being able to line up anywhere across the formation, and I value being able to win at all three levels of the field. Chris Olave can absolutely do that. And in New Orleans, if you like Tyler Shugg, which I was fine with coming out, there is a chance that there's going to be a massive uptick in that receiving core and in that offense as a whole. There's not a huge amount of competition for targets there, with Brandon Cooks and Rashid Shaheed as the other wide receivers at the top of the depth chart, and really nothing at tight end aside from Juwan Johnson. Alvin Kamara is obviously going to get a fair amount of the target share, but there's no reason why Olave can't see 100 plus targets going into next year. I think he is significantly undervalued right now in Dynasty circles. I can understand that his concussion history does make him a little bit of a risky asset to invest into. But if we can buy him relatively cheap right now, I would be looking to do so. We've liked the target volume we've seen from flexible wide receivers in Kellen Moore offenses, whether that's been AJ Brown, whether that's been Keenan Allen, Devonta Smith, even Mike Williams. We've seen a huge amount of volume. Chris Olave is obviously going to be the number one receiver for Tyler Shugg and this offense going forwards. Now, granted, it's not the best quality of target, but it is targets nonetheless. And I think Olave being available way down the board makes him a really interesting target. Another player that I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on is Brandon Aiyuk. I think Aiyuk is by far the most talented receiver on the depth chart in San Francisco, with Deebo Samuel moving on and his competition for targets being Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings. Obviously, we also have George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, so I understand that is going to conflict a little bit with him. But the reason Brandon Aiyuk's value is deflated is because of an injury. He struggled towards the beginning of last season, and it seems like he may be in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse. But after getting an extension last year, he's not been moved off the 49ers when they have had ample opportunity to do so, and probably to get a decent amount of draft capital in return. Aiyuk is the clear alpha in this offense. Juwan Jennings is more of a run-blocking wide receiver who wins with physicality, and with Ricky Pearsall, we don't really know what he is yet. Maybe the idea is that he can be the yards after the catch threat to replace Deebo Samuel, but aside from one huge game, we've not really seen it from last year's rookie receiver. Brandon Aiyuk, to me, is the best man-beating wide receiver in San Francisco, but he is so undervalued because he's going to miss a fair chunk of this season. This makes him a clear buy for me. I'm not going to be competing in 2026. Well, I misspoke there. I'm not going to be competing in 2025, but it's also true that I'm probably not going to be competing in 2026 as well. So Brandon Aiyuk to me feels like a great asset to go and buy when he's unavailable, especially as we get later towards the season and people realize that he might end up starting on the PUP list. The penultimate receiver that I want to talk about, and these last two are people that I am probably underweight on and under the market on, is Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy has an absolutely explosive end to last season. Playing with Deshaun Watson, he really struggled. But when Joe Flacco joined the offense, suddenly we saw the Jerry Jeudy breakout that we'd been hoping for since he was drafted to Denver a few years ago. He absolutely smashed the end of the season, finishing with over 1,000 receiving yards, and that's basically from the last 7 or 8 games alone. Now we have Joe Flacco starting off the season, and we know that Jeudy is going to be the number one receiver. To be honest, we're not even sure who the number 2 is behind him. Maybe Cedric Tillman, maybe Deontay Johnson, maybe it's David Bell. Jeudy is going to see a huge target volume. The problem is that he plays in Cleveland. Joe Flacco is going to start off the season, but then it could be Dylan Gabriel, it could be Kenny Pickett, it could be Shedeur Sanders. I don't think it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, so I would stop drafting him in Dynasty Leagues. People, I see it all the time, way higher than Dylan Gabriel. But once we move on to that younger quarterback, we're not sure what it's going to look like for Jerry Jeudy. So I'm not sure he would be available for a second round pick, but he could be someone we could target knowing that next year the Browns are more than likely to have a change at quarterback. They are more than likely to have to bring in someone new. And that means a huge amount of potential for an uptick in volume and an uptick in target quality for Jeudy as we head into the 2026 season, which could make him worth that first round pick that we are desperate to try and get. The last receiver that I want to talk about is someone that I actually tweeted about the other day, saying that I think is someone we're always going to be hyping up in the offseason, but they are never going to actually reach that hype. But I'm really intrigued to see your thoughts on Josh Downs. Josh Downs is probably the most talented receiver in Indianapolis. The problem has always been the accuracy of the quarterbacks he's playing with. Anthony Richardson is one of the least accurate quarterbacks, not just in the NFL right now, but truly in NFL history. And Daniel Jones isn't a huge amount better. But crucially, he is better than Anthony Richardson, and I think he is going to be starting the season as the Colts' starting quarterback. With that in mind, there's a theory that someone could emerge as the number one from this group, and Josh Downs has an equal chance to be able to do so. As when you look at the rest of the receiving core, they've all been pretty underwhelming in their time in the NFL. When you look at Michael Pittman, A.D. Mitchell, and Alec Pierce. Now, buying Josh Downs for a 2026 second doesn't feel great when we just sold Adonai Mitchell for the same pick. But given that he's someone that Dynasty circles absolutely love, he might break out and be worth that 2026 first in a few short months. So, those are the receivers that I'm interested in buying. I would love to know your thoughts on who you think I should be buying for a 2026 second, who we can turn into a 2026 first round pick. Like I said, there's going to be no episodes the next couple of weeks because I'm going to be relaxing on my honeymoon at an all-inclusive in Crete. So wish me luck while I'm there. What's going to go wrong? Tell me you hope I enjoy my honeymoon. I'll be thinking about this team and this YouTube channel while I'm sipping cocktails by the sea. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.